Finally, justice has been delivered. This is the happiest day of our lives.
Those happy people are, aren't they? Because you can be gay and you can be extremely happy. In a historic verdict, the country's top court today decriminalized the same-sex sex between two consenting adults, stating that sexual orientation is biological and innate. Human rights activists are obviously a happy lot, and what makes the judgment special is the observations of a unanimous verdict that the 5-judge bench headed by Deepak Misra did give. For one, it asserts that LGBTs possess the same fundamental rights as any other person in our society. Societal morality cannot take away the constitutional rights. Justice Indu Malhotra went one step ahead to state that history owes an apology to the LGBTQ community, which was woefully targeted by the society. The court has also asked the government to run a campaign to abolish misconceptions against the LGBT community. Experts believe that this is only the first step, and justice will be done only when LGBTs are given an equal treatment in civil rights of marriage and adoption. The Supreme Court's historic verdict decriminalizing the same-sex sex and how it could herald a new and rising India is a big topic of discussion and debate right here on the India Development Debate this evening. I've got a stellar panel right here with me. Keshav Suri, lead petitioner and executive director at Lalit Group; Anjali Gopalan, founder NAS Foundation Trust; Harish Iyer, equal rights activist; Anand Grover, lawyer, activist for sexual minorities. Thank you each one of you for being with us. I can't thank you enough for being on the show, and I think I must begin with you, Keshav Suri, and I think every one of you, it's a huge congratulations that come your way. You've been very, very relentless, very perseverant as far as this movement was concerned, and I think finally the Supreme Courts have shown us a way. But Keshav, how big a deal the Supreme Court verdict really is? Chief Justice of India, Deepak Misra, in his judgment said that the LGBTQ community needs the rainbow of hopes for the sake of humanity. This is their journey to dignity, equality and liberty. This clearly isn't just about gay rights or same-sex, consensual sex. This is a lot about equality. Do you believe the judgment ensures that?
Okay, so firstly, thank you so much for saying that, and congratulating us. Thank you to the media for really pushing this and shedding this in such a great light. I got to say that, I personally, yes, I might have been persevering or whatever, but actually there have been a whole host of people that have been here before me and that will come after me. I mean, you got to shout out to people like NAS Foundation, Humsafar Trust, the lawyers that were on this, Menika, Arundhati. I mean, these are the people that really fought for this. So I'm like the, the sad little rich boy, actually. I'm really nobody here. The cause is much bigger than I am. As far as the judgment is concerned, I don't think it gets better than this. I mean, when you have the judges turning around and saying that we need to apologize to the LGBTQ community, this community has been, of course, clearly tolerating, our community has been tolerating injustices across the country, and for 70 years. I think now it's just time to celebrate. What Section 377 did was that it gave the power to homophobic people and to biphobic and transphobic people that yes, we can continue being so, as the law doesn't really protect this section of society. Well, today we have opened a new chapter, a new rainbow era of the country, thanks to the Supreme Court.
Okay, let me, a big shout out to NAS Foundation Trust, and Anjali Gopalan is here with us. And Anjali, I do want to ask you this question that, in a lot of ways, it's the courts have treaded where politicians were too scared and too feared to go.
Yeah, but that's fine. The point is that I'm glad the courts did what they've done. Because we've gone through quite a roller coaster, and Anand is there to bear testimony for it, is that, in 2003 or 4, we were thrown out, and then we had to go to the Supreme Court, who asked us to go back to the High Court, and then the fabulous judgment of 2009, and then the really awful judgment of 2013, the first time that I really felt such a sense of hopelessness, right? but I'm glad the courts have taken the stand they've done, because what they've done today is incredible. It's really at so many levels. It's going to make going to impact thousands, millions of lives. So I'm glad that they took the stand they did, because I'm not sure politicians can and will take a stand that they don't believe will benefit them.
Fair point indeed. But let me just take this across to Anand Grover. And Anand, being a relentless lawyer in this case, I think you deserve as much accolade. But Justice Chandrachud observed, and these were concurrent judgments that were read out, and Justice Chandrachud observed that Section 377 is a majoritarian impulse to subjugate sexual minority to live in silence. These are strong words against any majoritarian view, but particularly against this community. Has this set or has this silenced critiques one and for all?
Well, I think first I want to thank you for inviting us, and also thank all the panelists for the work they have done. I mean, we've been at it for 18 years, and one of the lessons I've learned is, you have to fight on and never give up. And because justice, as Keshav just mentioned, is on one side, and the community has been persecuted, and it's good, like the English government, Justice Malhotra has said, there is an apology due. But actually you're right, the judgment goes far beyond only LGBT issues. It also goes far beyond 377, because it says that majoritarian impulses in a liberal democratic society with a liberal constitution cannot dictate what should happen when fundamental rights like privacy, dignity, equality, non-discrimination are involved. So even if one person is ostracized, and that actually infringes a fundamental right, unlike what Kaushal said, that person can come to court. And that's what we had done in Delhi in 2001, which was upheld in 99. But you have actually pointed to the right direction. Today we see a lot of dissension, violent conflict, no tolerance. So this is a message for all those sections of society who think that they can ignore the liberal values in this society, which are espoused in the Constitution, in its preamble, and the constitutional morality, as it is called. These are very important judgments. The Delhi High Court actually introduced constitutional moralities, and therefore I think this is the right way to go. And not only will it actually allow just 1 minute, allow the LGBTI communities to look for further fights on things like equality and non-discrimination in the private sector. The change in the rape law and sexual and also marriages.
I have those points to touch upon.
Everybody deserves. If I want to
get married, Anand Grover, that's exactly what I'm going to touch upon next. If you can bear with me for a minute, I will go across to Harish Iyer. Those are points that I'm touching upon. Let me take this across to Harish Iyer. And Harish, more than the judgment, like Anand is pointing out there, constitutional morality, biological reasons, and a freedom of facet of life. I mean, those are the kind of arguments that's been made. Justice Indu Malhotra stating that society owes an apology to the LGBTQ community for the years of stigma imposed on them. Is that what you take heart from? It's one thing to, to not be called a criminal, but the other thing is that the court goes beyond that. The court says, okay, you are not a criminal, yes, all right, but you know what? The society needs to do away with the stigma. They owe you an apology.
I think the court has gone way beyond what was expected of them. And this is not just, as Anand was rightly pointing out, this is not just about LGBT rights. It's about the fact that no majoritarian view can be forced upon a minority. That just because we are a few in number, our numbers cannot be ignored and our rights are important. So this speaks a lot about minority issues as well. I mean, not just LGBT, any minority for that matter will find an equal voice after this verdict, because this verdict clearly spells out that minority, one man who is a minority is a majority in a democracy like India.
Right. Right. You know, Harish, I want to take this forward, and I'll come to you, Keshav, because, you know, it's one thing for this entire exercise to not be a criminal offense. But, you know, we have to talk about the next obvious steps. What's next? You know, as far as gay marriages are concerned, adoption is concerned, that's going to be an altogether new fight, will it not, Keshav?
Of course, life's a fight. But I think today, at least, let's celebrate. Let's celebrate. Let's take one step at a time. But I think that the judges have acknowledged that there has to be now, beyond just decriminalization, there really has to be a step now towards protection, towards equality, towards marriage equality, towards insurance, inheritance rights. I think that will happen. But for now, I just want to celebrate. At least we're not criminals anymore.
That's important. I mean, nobody is a criminal anymore because you are a consenting adult and you can have sex with your partner if he's or she is consenting too. But let me take this across to Anjali again. And Anjali, you know, Keshav is perhaps too elated and say we need to look at the positive today. But the government wanted SC to decide only on gay sex and wanted to be heard if at all anything beyond that, like gay marriages or adoption or any such thing was happening. What's the hope we have for the next obvious steps to follow? I mean, two people in love would want to culminate their relationship in marriage. We've taken 50 years to catch up with the rest of the world to decriminalize gay sex. Where does hope lie on this one?
Well, I just think that no matter what, this has to happen. And we need to strike while the iron is hot. I think the sooner we do, the better it is. Now, whether the courts look at it or Parliament does, it doesn't matter. The fight has to go on. This is just the end of one fight. Another battle is going to start, because when we start looking at rights, when people start demanding their rights, that's when we may see some pushback. That's when where people are going to get riled up. So I think what we need to understand is it doesn't matter. We have to do this. People have to get their rights. And as a matter of fact, the judgment today very clearly opened that door. It's made it very clear that people do have the right to life. They do have the right to dignity. They have to be treated as equals. So I don't see any reason why we should deny the right to marriage, right to inheritance, right to adopt to a section of our population. Why should it be only the prerogative of the majority? That to me doesn't make sense. And this judgment clearly paves the way, opens the doors on that one, right? And the other thing I want to say, which I'm really glad that Section 377 wasn't set aside, is because our rape laws are not gender neutral. So male on male rape and sexual abuse of animals, these are the two things that we need Section 377 for. So, you know, so I'm really happy with the way the judgment that has been given today by the Supreme Court.
Right. No, you're right, and the court in its wisdom has kept those provisions intact. The court very clearly says bestiality, no consent sex is not a part of, and should not be read favorably. But, you know, a very quick clarification that I'd like to get from Harish here. And Harish, you know, one of the things is really, does decriminalization alone wane societal biases, the prejudices one have? Because even while reading out his separate concurrent judgment, Justice Nariman said that recently passed Mental Health Care Act has recognized that homosexuality is not a mental disorder. He has in fact suggested that the central government must campaign to reduce stigma surrounding sexual minorities. Do you believe that's going to give up society as far as stigma is concerned around homosexuality, around same sex?
There is a lot of education that is needed. There is a lot of dialogue that is needed. We have just began. Now is the real work. Now is when we need to work. Now is when, like, as Anjali rightly said, we need to strike when the iron is hot, and we need to educate more people. Go and tell people what exactly this judgment is. Tell them that homosexuality is not a disease, it's not a disorder. Though the courts have said something, now the is with channels like yours, is with people like us who have who have the ability of sharing our views. I mean, we also belong to a privileged class because we are sharing our views. There are many LGBT people who do not have the privileges that we do of sharing our views so openly, so publicly on television. So I think we all have, everyone who has come out has the responsibility of taking the onus of the community and educating as many people as he, she or she can. I think that's what is needed. Societal prejudices will take time to get wiped off, and this is the fight for any minority. The minority will always be struggling and will be fighting for an equal space in the society. It will happen, it has happened, it will happen, and we have to be at it. We cannot rest on our laurels. Supriya, I think, thank you very much for calling all of us and starting this dialogue, and I'm sure that ET Now should be at it throughout, not just today, but every now and then bring out these issues, and we need to keep discussing this.
Harish, no, absolutely. We've got to start a dialogue, we've got to educate, and we've all got to play a part. But Anand Grover, I'll come to you, and I think this is the point that you were touching upon when I said I will come back to you, because this is the point I wanted to bring up in the show. Barring a few who are well off, Anand, most of the LGBTQ community will hope for better livelihood beyond this judgment. After all, prejudices at work and elsewhere have been inhibiting factors. Does this need affirmative action, maybe from the industry, maybe from policymakers? I mean, in terms of diversity and arguments moving beyond that?
Well, in a similar issue arose in Nalsa, and that is a transgender case where we had argued that you have to have affirmative action, and in fact the court directed that the government actually introduce reservations, but that has not happened till today. And even the transgender bill, they have not introduced reservations. That's one area. But I think one of the things that we can definitely start doing very quickly is the fact that equality and non-discrimination should start immediately. So one of the areas where this is going on very incessantly and perniciously is the private sector. Though it happens in the government and the public sector, there are remedies. There is the constitution. I can go to the High Court if I have a LGBTQI transgender client and get an order. But if it is, say, the Lawyers Collective, which is our organization, which is a private organization, if we discriminate against the LGBTQI communities, nobody can do anything about it in law. So we need a law which actually will have equality and non-discrimination for the private sector. And now this is a demand coming from all sectors. And in other countries, they have had an equal protection law or equality law, which actually spans across, not from only LGBTQI communities, but it spans across all divergent groups of society, including disability, affected people, racial minorities, religious minorities, in the sense there should be no discrimination, like the constitution says, on different grounds. This is an urgent necessity, and if you have that, at least wherever jobs are available, they cannot be discriminated on these grounds. I think the second issue which will come up in terms of jobs is that there has to be sensitization of employers. A lot of, I mean, that actually happens in the case of transgender people, because, can we have a television presenter who's transgender? A lot of people have prejudice. Right now I'm doing a case in the Supreme Court. You must have heard a transgender person, trans woman, has been refused a job as an air hostess in Air India because, according to the test, personality aptitude test, she could not stand according to their whims and desires, turn around again and not smile properly. Now, these are such subjective considerations that anybody can be ruled out for any reason. And they don't give you the reason that it's because the person is transgender. So we need to sensitize and make sure that in all spheres of society, our ideas about beauty, our ideas about everything changes.
Oh, absolutely. And that's very subjective. And you're absolutely right. I think at a societal, at an employer, at the private sector level, there needs to be greater sensitization. But Keshav, let me come to you. Will this decisive Supreme Court judgment embolden more influential voices, more prominent people to come out and speak against prejudices? I know you chose to do that many years back. But what about the rest? Is this going to encourage many more people to add and lend their voice to embolden this community? People of relevance.
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, already when the last time when the Supreme Court, in the last judgment, when they overturned the High Court's decision, they turned around and one of the judges said, who are these gay people? Who are these lesbian people? They don't exist. They're a very minuscule minority. Since then to now, already the world's changed, and thanks to people like Tim Cook and various others across the world, and of course many countries have even recognized marriage equality and equal rights. And then since then, when it was just maybe one curative petition from the Naz Foundation, there have been so many more voices. I mean, whether it is Navtej, Ritu Dalmia, Aisha, and then after me there was the entire Humsafar Trust, 20 IITians, and there were many more coming already. So now, of course, there's going to be a lot more representation. One of the reasons why I filed my writ was actually to show representation. And which I think is very, very important. And I'm hoping that, yes, this is going to now get people all coming out of the closet.
Okay, I agree with you there, and I think so does Harish and Anjali. But Harish, a quick follow-up with you. You know, was it disappointing amidst it all that the government did not come out in the open and support? I mean, the political class was extremely quiet on both ends of the political spectrum. This was too big a political hot potato that nobody wanted to reach. I mean, Shashi Tharoor brought this private members bill that actually saw no traction both from the ruling and the opposition benches. Was it disappointing in many ways that, you know, we expect our elected representatives to be at the forefront of our causes, and here they were totally shying away from this?
I think if we have won this, we have won this not because of the political class. This is despite the political class. And let's not mince any words in saying so, that they did not stand up for us by saying that we are not going to comment and we are going to accept. How can you just leave it to the court when you could take a stand and say that, hey, these are my people, and these are citizens of our country, and we don't want their lives to be discriminated. I mean, how much more, because our private lives were getting policed, how much effort does that take? I mean, not one actually came up, and except for Shashi Tharoor, Jai Panda, the CPIM party, I think no one actually came out so formidably and said that, hey, we need to stand up with LGBT people, and we need to, even when Shashi Tharoor tried introducing the bill, Congress party was not there in full attendance. So even his party wasn't there in full attendance. So I think the whole political class, if we put all of them on a whole, we have won this despite them. So they stand no, right. Basically they can't really stand there and seek any support or any, you know, right, bask in the glory at all.
Yeah, Supriya.
Sure, absolutely. And,
Supriya,
and you know, this is despite the political class. Anand Grover, I'm coming to you. I have a... Yes, Anand Grover, I'm coming to you. I also have a follow-up question with you. I will request each one of you to make it brief because I've got very little time on this show. But Anand, I'm going to ask you a little bit of an uncomfortable question. I am not a fan of judicial activism. I really think power to make policy lies with the political class because, you know, they can be elected and thrown out of offices. They are accountable to the people. I don't like judicial activism. But when you see cases like these, you're tempted to say, is judicial activism a good thing as far as interpretation of the Constitution is concerned, because our elected political class is refusing to do that? Anand?
Well, I think this is a very complex and a very important... Yes, I agree with you partly, but let me make my position clear. First of all, in terms of fact, after the Delhi High Court judgment, the UPA government, from Mr. Chidambaram onwards, their Attorney General completely supported us. But they did not take any action in Parliament. That is where the weakness of the political class lies, and I think that's rightly being criticized, except for some exceptions like Shashi Tharoor. I think Shashi Tharoor could have managed it better, but you are right, the political class doesn't see this as a major vote-catching issue. But I think those things are changing because of the transgender community, which are becoming very powerful at the local level. Having said that, I don't agree with you that judicial activism is a bad thing as a whole. It depends. I think sometimes we are overactive in India, but at certain crucial junctures, like this one, it is the right place for the court to strike down a statute. This has been done all over the world, by the way, from United States to Fiji to Tasmania in the Human Rights Committee, South Africa, Belize, lots of countries. This is a classical case where in the Kaushal judgment in 2013, the Supreme Court was wrong in telling Parliament to do its job. If the Parliament doesn't do its job and a statute is unconstitutional, like the courts have said, it is the duty of the Supreme Court to strike it down. They were exercising their duty today. I agree with you that sometimes the Supreme Court may go overboard. Right. There is criticism, and that is part of democracy. That is part of our liberal democracy. Right. You should criticize it in a constructive manner so that the court can be corrected. Only one point I wanted to add to an earlier question, which you talked about the poor LGBTQI communities. I think Keshav will actually bear this out. He was fortunate to have lawyers like Menika, etc. But for the poor people, what is happening, and that's a good thing, there are organizations like Humsafar Trust. There are organizations who are actually helping the poor gay communities. In fact, when we first decided to do this case in 2001, Ashok Rao Kavi of Humsafar Trust was ready. But we couldn't take him because we had to file a petition in Delhi. And Anjali also had the same problem in terms of rights of gay men. And actually, she was willing to take it up. And thank God she was willing to take it up. Very few gay people at that time were prepared to come forward. So I'm very happy to, I just want to say, I want to thank Keshav to take a lead because he's ready to come, talk about it. And that's what we want to see in the future.
Right. I think the many more people come forward and talk about and come out of closet, to use Keshav's phrase, it is going to be very good for the community, because the stigma will only go away when they see successful people. I mean, I've got a battery of global CEOs to rattle, whether it's Tim Cook or Peter Thiel or Alan Joyce, Chris Hughes, the founder of Facebook. They were gay men. They came out of the closet, and look at the good that they did to their community. People see you as a successful entrepreneur. People see that you've made something of your life. It is not a stigma. You are not any less, any less individualistic, any less brighter. But I will give the last word to the lady, because I'm a very biased journalist, if you may call me so. And Anjali, I'll come to you. Is the suggestion, however, in this debate and in this Supreme Court judgment, the essence and the spirit of this is that gender diversity cannot be just about men and women anymore. It has to move beyond that. It has to include man, woman, and people of all sexual orientation. Only then can we call ourselves a truly diverse, gender proportion.
Yes, absolutely, and I agree with that. But what I would like to actually end by saying is that if the political will is there, that is when we can bring about a change in attitudes. For example, we can do so much to bring about a change in the way people perceive the LGBTQ community. For example, how about introducing this component into the school education system? How about introducing this into training for the police, for the armed forces? It's not an impossibility. It is so doable. So if we are really serious about taking this forward and ensuring that this kind of discrimination doesn't exist, it's possible. It's just a question of ensuring that we take the right steps. And I really think we need the political will to be able to do that.
Right. No, absolutely. This has been a fascinating discussion. And just to tell you, on national television, talking about sensitization, my son asked me this morning, what is 377 and why are you guys making such a hullabaloo about this? And I told him this is important. This is about choices people make and choices that we must respect. Choices that should not make you an unequal person. Choices that the Supreme Court now says ensures you dignity, ensures you equality. And the society that does not respect their choices owes that individual an apology. Thank you very much for this fascinating discussion. Anjali, Anand, Harisha, and of course Keshav Suri. Thank you very much for being with us on this edition of the India Development Debate.